That was not the right one. Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. It is your boy HMK here once again, and I'd like to welcome you back to the fifth dimension. Now, Kingdom Hearts has had a massive update in terms of Kingdom Hearts Dark Road's finale. And the madness and sadness that is the infinite darkness that goes into the finale of Kingdom Hearts Dark Road has us feeling many, many feelings. And to talk about those feelings, I have two amazing friends, two amazing content creators, and two awesome members of the Kingdom Hearts community. Let me introduce you to them one by one. First off, we have here SarahKey. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great. I hope everyone is also doing well.
I mean, I hope so too, considering what we saw from Dark Road. Am I right? Oh, yeah, man. Sure. But thank you so much for being on the show. Now, last but definitely not least, to encapsulate the trinity that is today's episode of the Fifth Dimension, we have Audrey of AitaiKimochi. How are you doing today?
Hey HMK, thank you so much for inviting me to the show. And hey Sarah, I'm excited to talk to everyone about Kingdom Hearts Dark Road and all of the crazy roller coaster emotions that happen.
Heck yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be grand. And we're gonna get into that right quick very soon. But before I get into the real spiel of everything that is this stream, make sure to hit up that Command KH merch to check out Audrey's shop, in which you can grab some awesome exclusive Japanese Kingdom Hearts merch that ships worldwide. Check it out in the link in the chat below. So let's get this party started. First off, I'm gonna no, of course, no problem. I'm gonna throw the ball over to Audrey first when it comes to this is gonna be a question for all three of us. All right.
Okay.
Audrey, what was, in your opinion, the most hard-hitting part of everything when it comes to Kingdom Hearts Dark Road's final update? It doesn't have to be the finale. It just has to be anywhere from episode 4 and up. What was the thing that hit you the hardest? And it has to be one. It has to be one.
Okay. I think it's just the humanization of Xehanort as a character that's not just, obsessed with darkness. Like seeing his side of the story, how he becomes him, the Xehanort that we know in Kingdom Hearts series, was quite, I guess, heartbreaking because you play the entire series thinking that Xehanort is the ultimate bad guy, right? Like he's the worst person. He made 13 versions of himself trying to take over people's bodies, whatever. But when you see why or how he got there and how the sacrifices that had to be made that he went through and his friend losing his friends, and then even when he was a kid being not intentionally lied to, but I guess hinted, misled by the person at the end of the Dark Road, to think that he's someone who's going to be really important and change destiny and so forth. It just all of the things that piled up to make him become a seeker of darkness is just really sad.
It was extremely sad. And because here's one interjection before I throw the ball over to Sarah. There's one interjection that I feel not a lot of people, but some people are oh man, look at, Nomura and Kingdom Hearts retroactively making Xehanort such a tragic character, such a, I don't want to say tweener character, but a character that is able to be humanized with, and you can see where he's coming from, even though Xehanort did some dastardly things, and everything that we've seen from Dark Road, in my opinion, doesn't excuse it. But at the same time, I understand. But then I'm throughout Kingdom Hearts, we always had the secret reports, and Xehanort, I felt, was a very nuanced, great character. So now that we got a deeper dive into that for Dark Road, I liked it because I always liked Xehanort as a character, and I always thought that Xehanort was one of those like, okay, he's doing some really, really bad things, but for the greater good. That doesn't make it right, and then that brings in the whole conversation of like, do the ends justify the means? And I feel that's always an interesting conversation, especially when it comes to it being applied to Kingdom Hearts. But I definitely get where you're coming from, like the humanization of Xehanort, just seeing everything he's gone through. Just like, man, I just want to give Benjamin Diskin a hug. Like that's what I want to do. But from that perspective, when it comes to the most hard-hitting aspect of Dark Road Chapter 4 and up, I want to throw the ball over to you, Sarah. What is your take? What's the thing that hits you the hardest when it comes to like the entirety of Dark Road Chapter 4 and up?
Okay. Well, I did it all like at once the other day.
Right. Yeah. I watched the stream and I'm like, oh.
I can't remember if this is chapter 4 and up, but I really liked the Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind scene coming back up. I thought that was so cool.
Oh yeah.
But if that's not chapter 4 and up, then
no, it definitely is. It definitely is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah. That part really blew my mind. I loved that.
Mm-hmm.
It was so cool to see how it connects.
Definitely, like with that whole aspect of like, because I want to assume that the scene that you're talking about is the one where the Master shows off his ability to like basically will any Keyblade to his hand. Is that the one you're talking about, or is it the actual Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind cutscene?
Yeah, I mean that one was cool too because then I could see where it was going. Yeah, but
Right.
then actually seeing like the exact cutscene from Remind and then seeing how everything just like connects together, I think for me was just the coolest part.
Gotcha.
It.
Right. Just like to like, because we got that taste in Remind, and then like we saw that scene again in Dark Road, but now we got all the context before and after. So yeah, that definitely that was definitely spicy, right? Because seeing the cutscene that played before that, it like that one blew my mind. That's like actually one of my favorite moments in Dark Road. Just seeing for the longest of the Master of Masters is like, okay, the Master of Masters, how bad can he be? How, not bad as in evil, but how bad as in like, how much of a problem can this man be? Of course, like his name is Master of Masters because he is a master of Keyblade Masters. But like, what can he do other than, writing the Book of Prophecies, forging Keyblades off the hearts of his followers? Now we get the idea that he's able to like, summon any Keyblade away from someone else. And I'm like, okay, that's gonna be a big issue. That's gonna be crazy. So how about let's talk about that a little bit, reeling off of Sarah's choice. So I'm gonna throw it back to Sarah for that, and I'm gonna go over to Audrey. So Sarah, like, tell me about how you felt seeing that scene. Just like, okay, the Master is definitely okay. Now I think this man's about to be a problem. Like,
yeah, I'm like in the same boat where I wasn't sure. Like, I couldn't even really tell if he was necessarily an enemy at a certain point. It's like it just felt so confusing. All I knew is that he had a lot of power. But now it really feels like he has too much power, I guess. I think he has potential to be more of a problem than even Xehanort, to be honest.
Oh, definitely. I feel like, like that scene in itself is, of course, Xehanort was still in training, but this was always going to be the man destined to be, the main bad guy of the Dark Seeker saga. So I felt that scene was also very poetic in showing the vastness of power between that of Xehanort and the Master of Masters. I'm like, okay, we dealt with Xehanort all the way up until Dark Seeker saga in many different forms. Young Xehanort, Terra Xehanort, Ansem, Xemnas, all that good jazz, and then we finally put him to rest at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, and then we got a little bit of like remnant Xehanort to deal with in Melody of Memory. But I felt that was a good way to show the divide between, I'm like, okay, everything we expected from Xehanort, we got. What can we expect from Master Masters? Okay, that's gonna be a lot, and that I feel that's just only a taste, just a small taste of what the Master of Masters is capable of from what we see, because him and the Lost Masters in their entirety is still an enigma in all sense of the word. But then in that sense, I'm going to throw the ball over to Audrey and let me know what you thought about, the Master of Masters saying, hey, what a Keyblade, hanky-panky, just, taking it. Let me know what you think.
Oh yeah, so I actually played the Remind DLC like a couple days before Dark Road came out. Maybe no more than a week before Dark Road came out with the finale. So I was that scene with Xehanort and Master of Masters was really fresh in my mind, and when it was playing, I was like, wait. Hey, this is a scene. It's in the DLC. And then I was like, wait, and then it was elaborated a little bit, I think. And when I like saw that he can summon keyblades from anyone who has a keyblade, I was like, it made me think like okay, like yeah, she's like probably the antagonist for the next saga of the Lost Masters arc, but like who exactly is he, right? So I was thinking like Master of Masters is present when Luxu and all of the foretellers were, alive, which was, I'm assuming, hundreds of years ago, because that's like also when Xehanort was alive, right? If that's the case, then if he's a time traveling person, which is, I guess, possible, like, what if he is actually Sora?
Oh boy. I like that. That's a very interesting take on the whole Master Masters Sora theory, because I mean, I've seen that like up until like, the wazoo to hell and back. And, like I've read a lot of Sora Master of Master, like Sora is the Master Masters or the Master Masters is Sora, vice versa theories. And a lot of them I feel do make a lot of sense. And I get where you're coming from, Audrey, but at the same time, like it dials down for me on a personal level where I'm like, I wouldn't want that to happen because, the whole basis of like Sora's character was supposed to be like, he is a ordinary boy who happened upon this great power, who happened upon this great, destiny, given his, natural ability to connect his heart with others, which is something that you don't really need superhuman powers or superhuman destiny in order to do, which I feel like is an amazing message. And like, if Sora is connected to the Master Masters any type of way of like, being a different version of him, being related to him, or being him from a different time, I feel that would definitely dilute that message, right? But then going off that message, here's another thing that we have to talk about. Like, there's a great tangent, there's a great segue into that, where Kingdom Hearts Dark Road at the very end talked about a concept of the Child of Destiny. So we're going to talk about that for a little bit, right? Because as you guys, if you guys haven't seen Dark Road, I'm pretty sure there's a tons of videos you can go in and watch. You can check out Sarah's reactions. You can check out the videos I put out and you can see all of the tweets of Audrey breaking it down as well. But in that sense of Child of Destiny, it was inferred by Blue Robe, who turned out to be the player character of both Union Cross and Missing Link. The Blue Robe thought that Xehanort was the Child of Destiny, as a Child of Destiny would be able to hail from the Destiny Islands and then, connect their hearts with others and even become one, right? And that's a lot of powers that Xehanort has shown off throughout the series, but also in a certain sense, Sora is able to do those as well. And then, of course, the whole idea of the Child of Destiny being the one to, change the destiny that is light expiring and darkness prevailing. Xehanort didn't really do that because, he was on the side of darkness at the point in time where light actually didn't expire. It was Sora that was able to do all that. And then a lot of people are inferring that Sora is the actual Child of Destiny, which will make a lot of sense. He came from Destiny Islands. He was able to connect his heart with others, become one. Not that he threw his heart into another person to become one. Rather, he invited hearts in order to come into his heart. The whole Sora Heart Hotel aspect in order to become one. Let's talk about that aspect for a little bit. And in that sense, I just want to get my feelings out there really quick. I feel that both Sora and Xehanort are children of destiny because both of them led to the final situation that, changed the destiny of darkness prevailing and light expiring. But in that sense, I'm like, Child of Destiny, that would kind of make Sora special. And I don't know how to feel about that. But when it comes to how we feel about that, I'm going to throw it over to Sarah first. Sarah, how do you feel about that whole aspect and the whole idea of a Child of Destiny?
Interesting, because obviously Xehanort kind of failed at like his plans and everything. So to see like the blue robed character saying those things to him, I just thought it was really interesting to see how like things didn't really seem to pan out the way that was intended. I can see what you're saying, that Sora would be a child of destiny as well. I just wonder like how that works. Like I wonder if maybe if somebody fails to do it, then it gets passed on to somebody else.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that would work, but that would be pretty cool.
You know, because like it would definitely go in line with the whole idea of like, you know, princesses of heart, you know, passing down their lights once their job is done, or, you know, is their job done, or is just like they didn't do their job. You know, that's a really good idea. Like, oh, you know, wow, yo, Sarah, I think you're onto something, because I mean, like, you know, Sora is the one that gets passed down all these things, you know, like Riku's kingdom key, which was always meant for Riku, it got passed down to Sora because Riku fell to the darkness and wasn't able to like, you know, be worthy of it at the time. And the whole title of Child of Destiny, that's a good paradox. That's a good fallacy in my opinion. That okay, I like that. Sarah, I really like that because you know, that would make Sora unspecial. So okay, cool. You solved it. You solved the equation. So like the Child of Destiny was always meant to be Xehanort, but like how Blue Robe said that other hearts may poison his, and then his heart eventually got poisoned by all the traumatic experiences he got. So the title of Child of Destiny got passed down to Sora. So it wasn't always meant for him. It was meant for Xehanort, and then Sora got it. And ooh, I like that. I like that.
Sorry,
no, go ahead.
I wanted to just add to that. What is Sora? Well, Xehanort's not from Destiny's Islands.
Exactly.
Though.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't be the Child of Destiny, right? Because the Child of Destiny would have to be from the Islands of Destiny or something like that. Is what the player said. But also, I don't know if the players are reliable. I guess like narrator in a sense that if they are actually telling the true prophecy or not, right?
Right. I feel that, you know, the whole idea that the Child of Destiny must hail from the Isles of Destiny is that, you know, I feel maybe like Xehanort was at an age, an obvious age, where he would be on the super young side, in that maybe the prophecy were to be inferred that a child had to be raised on the Isles of Destiny. Because I mean, like, you know, super baby Xehanort is not going to, like, of course, he kind of remembers his mom, which I find very hard to believe. Like, you know, if my eyes are still closed at that in that level of infancy, there's no way I'm going to remember my parents. You know, like I remember my parents like as soon as my eyes open. But in that sense, I feel that, you know, they were trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to use a word like force, but they were trying to, like, you know, proc the Child of Destiny as soon as they can. So maybe like they were like, okay, let's take this kid to Destiny Islands. Let's see. All right, does this kid pine out? No. All right, let's take him back to Scala. Kylam. All right, you're still special, so you become a Keyblade wielder. But as soon as Blue Robe was able to, like, oh wow, this kid was able to sense my heart. All right, this is the one. This is the one. So like maybe they did it over and over and over again. Where it's like, okay, we need a kid to grow up in Destiny Islands, because I mean, Destiny Islands is like, you know, some straight up island backwater town where no one lives and stuff. Like even Xehanort said himself, like, well, there's no one else here. We're the only ones living here. What you mean, right? So I feel like they were trying to proc that Destiny. But I definitely get what you're saying, where like, oh, Sora may have been more destined to be that than Xehanort to begin with, because Sora naturally, you know, came into existence in Destiny Islands, because for the longest, up until the end of Union Cross, it was always implied that Xehanort also came from Destiny Islands, which was something that I felt was really interesting that tied Sora and Xehanort together.
Right.
But in that sense, you know, it makes a lot of sense given that we now know that Xehanort is indeed a descendant of Ephemer. Which I'm like, okay, all right, this is where we're going. Because, you know, Ephemer's silver white hair, and then Xehanort's silver white hair and whatnot. But going off those type of revelations when it comes to the whole linkage between Dark Road and Union Cross, I was actually more than mildly surprised that it turned out that the player character wasn't reincarnated into Xehanort. Rather, the player character was reincarnated into the player character Missing Link. then was super implied to be, get super, super old and then take care of Xehanort. And then the whole reason why we saw Xehanort in the memories of, the player character as Blue Robe is because Xehanort was able to connect his heart with the player character. I want to ask you guys, how do you feel about that whole, aspect? Because like for the longest, it was pretty near, it was almost near unanimous that everyone agreed that the player character reincarnated to Xehanort, which I'm like, oh, that's super poetic, and I'm like, damn. But now that we know the truth, I want to ask you guys, how do you feel about that? I'm gonna throw the ball over to Audrey first about that.
Okay. It's funny because just now when you were setting up, I was just talking to Sarah about like what exactly happened at Union Cross, and Sarah was like, I think everyone became Xehanort, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then you just bring it up just now about that idea, that theory. So I guess Sarah, you were right. Like the theory was that people were the players supposed to become Xehanort.
Right.
Yeah, but I think that. It's interesting that the player character died in the on the Destiny's Islands or whatever. If she they didn't die, they at least faded away or whatever. But going back to like I guess. It's interesting that the player character just dropped that Child of Destiny lore and then like disappears, and I assume that they're going to disappear into Missing Link for whatever reason, because of like timeline or whatever shenanigans. But like so because the player said that they lived 2 lives, right? So one life is Union Cross, the next life is Missing Link, and then after that is when they become old, right, and go to Destiny's Island. So I think that because the player introduced the concept of the Child of Destiny right at the end, I think that Missing Link is going to probably delve upon that Child of Destiny information, like theme and whatnot, pretty deeply, because I think that the Child of Destiny concept is probably going to be related to the bloodlines. Whatever is the like Xehanort, like is it related to Xehanort or whatever, and like people living in Scala ad Kylum, they're categorized into 2 different categories: either people with Xehanort's blood or without Xehanort's blood. Yep. So I think that there's something going to there's going to be definitely some kind of like point in the story in Missing Link where it's like, oh, if you have this blood, or if you do not have this blood, then you have the potential to become the Child of Destiny. And probably that will, kind of follow into where is Destiny's Islands? Like, what is Destiny's Islands? Is it just like a world? Like, what is it? Is it in Scala ad Kylum, but a different area? Like, I mean, it's not really clear, right? When the player character took Xehanort as a child, as a baby, to Destiny Islands. Like, did he cross the worlds to do that, or did he just go like across the sea? That I don't know, right? I don't think it was said, right, in Dark Road or in Union Cross. So I think like it's possible that maybe it's in the same world, just in a different area. I don't know. But I think, definitely that the player character being, dropping all of that lore at the end of Dark Road's finale is going to kind of like go through that concept again in Missing Link. And then that will be really interesting to see what exactly they're going to have planned for it.
That's a really interesting point that you brought up about the whole idea of like, Destiny Islands being in another area of Scala ad Kylum, because that would actually make a ton of sense for other outlying, things within Kingdom Hearts, because Destiny Islands is obviously a very, very important part of Kingdom Hearts, and that, it even if it were to be connected to Scala ad Kylum, it would be very isolated. It would still have a door leading into the realm of darkness and whatnot, and, the whole idea of like worlds springing from the nexus that is Scala ad Kylum would make a lot of sense if like they were to spring something akin to that of Destiny Islands, to have like some sort of hub that would, birth or, raise a Child of Destiny in order to like hopefully, dodge the destiny that is light expiring and darkness prevailing. That's a really cool concept thinking about that. And, but then at the same time, you know, we have the whole idea of like, okay, Xehanort needs to leave the Destiny Islands in order to go out to the other worlds, and that, you know,
Right.
Skylar of Khan could be another world, and the whole idea of Ansem opening up a dark corridor in order to set Xehanort off on his journey that led him to Skylar Kylum. You know, that's a whole idea in itself that could clash with that. But the thing is, we don't know, right? And I would love to like figure that out, because the Destiny Islands is obviously special. I mean, not only in name but also in concept. So in that idea, I feel that that theory definitely holds merit, holds weight, and whatnot. But when it comes to the whole idea of, you know, the connections of missing link, you know, them possibly prepping for a child of destiny, learning about a child of destiny, I feel that something we're going to learn about that. And I definitely agree 100% that, you know, the whole idea of a bloodline being, you know, paramount to producing a child destiny is going to be explored in Missing Link. But then something that will be also super poetic is that the whole time, like the whole compare and contrast between that of Xehanort and Sora is that, like, this whole time, you know, they were tunnel visioning on the idea of Ephemera's bloodline, you know, the society of successors, those with the inheritance of Ephemera's bloodline. They're tunnel visioning on that of like, okay, this bloodline is the one that's going to produce a child of destiny, in which Sora, in my opinion, I feel like Sora is definitely part of, you know, the society of unsuccessors, part of the bloodline that aren't successors, the part of the bloodlines without inheritance, right? That would be the whole clashing information that the society of non-successors is the one destined, to produce the child of destiny, while everyone was looking at the bloodline that was, you know, quote unquote special. Maybe you should have looked at a bloodline that was ordinary, on, you know, someone that could, you know, change the world. And I feel once again that will be, you know, going in line with the beautiful message that like someone as ordinary as Sora was able to save and change the world, right? And I feel that may be explored in Missing Link.
Yeah, if you go off that with Sarah, what she said about the Child of Destiny being passed down, and the player character saying that perhaps it is too soon, and Xehanort is part of Ephemera's bloodline. I think that another popular theory is that Riku is actually the Child of Destiny, but he also moved, he also passed it down to Sora because he, like the Keyblade, it went to Sora, right? So that's another that's another theory I read, where there are multiple Childs of Destiny, and like Riku is possibly part of Ephemera's bloodline, but he's not the Child of Destiny because it went to Sora because Sora had a stronger heart.
Right. That man, yo,
I like that.
I love that too. Like Dark Road really like blew a hole in the whole idea of what we know when it came to Kingdom Hearts. Of course, you know, a lot of what we know we use to supplement our understanding of Dark Road, but they just Nomura just went in with that. Now, with the whole idea of Child of Destiny, given where we went off multiple tangents, but I want to give the floor over to Sarah. What do you think about the whole concept that was introduced about the Child of Destiny when it came to like it being Xehanort, it being Sora, Destiny Islands, that whole, I would say, you know, connection point of concept? Like, how do you feel about something like that being introduced into Kingdom Hearts?
I mean, I think it's cool. I think it makes sense. Like, Kingdom Hearts has a lot of different themes that it explores when it comes to like Destiny and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a cool concept. I would be interested to see like if there were other Children of Destiny like in the past, like maybe like we were talking about with like Missing Link, to see kind of like what happens with the theme in that game. I really liked all the things that Audrey was saying about that. I thought that sounded so cool. But yeah, no, I'm like kind of open to like any sort of themes, especially new ones. But I just think it fits Kingdom Hearts though to have like somebody who's destined for something, like how Sora was destined to have the Keyblade. I mean, yes, it was supposed to be Riku, but I just think that it's really neat to see like that there's a person that could have such an impact on the story.
I definitely get that. And, you know, it would definitely give a lot of, you know, reasoning to like why all these bad guys or all these people like kind of like focus on the whole Destiny Island. It's like, okay, this world is gonna be special. We need to keep our eye on it. Something's gonna go down at one point or another, and giving all this context after the fact is like really, really, really cool. But then in that sense, when it comes to underlying context, I want to dial it over to another thing that we saw within that of Dark Road, which was like a big like wow factor. And that is, honestly, I've been seeing this all the time leading into Dark Road, but I honestly didn't think they were going to go through with it. And that's why I kept writing. I'm like, there's no way. This is like blatant. How do y'all feel about Luxu turning out to be Bragi?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh my god.
I was like, there's no way. Because I'm like, okay, Brain, Bragi. Okay, all right, no more. I get it. There's a naming convention, because like as soon as people found out what Bragi's name was, they're like, oh, that's Luxu. That's Luxu. I'm like, nah, they wouldn't do that. That would be too easy. Nah. Dark Road finale comes out. Man. All right, I'm gonna throw it over to Sarah first. Like, how did you feel about that? Holy Lord.
We were talking about this earlier too, is like, does Nomura plan like this stuff way ahead of time, or is he just like, you know what?
I believe he does.
Do
I honestly believe, because like people like I feel they don't give enough enough credit, because I mean there was a lot of underlying aspects that people dialed back and found in previous cutscenes all the way back to like 2.5, like that 2.5 added cutscene for Recoded, where Xigbar was all like, man, no, Brig, where Brig's like, man, that Xehanort scares me like nobody's business, the way he could see into minds, right? At first I was like, okay, that just means that Xehanort's super smart and that he could just read you like a book. Like that he's playing chess and he's one step ahead of you. That's what I thought. But then going into Dark Road, after you found out that Xehanort literally has the ability to see what's in another person's heart, I'm like, okay, see, Nomura has been planning this for so long. I mean, at the very least, I think he has a bullet point somewhere, like a bullet point sheet, just like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about, to flesh it out later. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Sarah,
Sure.
continue.
No, it's okay. I was gonna say, I like, even if I will say though, like either way, I think it's still masterful. Like even if he finds ways to connect things later on, I think he does a really good job with it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if he does like not plan it way ahead of time, because I think he does a good job at making stuff connect for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that it was a very interesting reveal. But I remember saying from the start, I was like, what are the odds that it's the same letters in the name Break? Like, I felt like there had to be a connection of some sort. I didn't necessarily think he would be Luxu, but it makes sense. I can see that connection for sure.
Man, that's just, when I saw that, I was like, brr. I see people in the chat is like biggest eye roll in Kingdom Hearts history. I'm like, you know what? You're not wrong. You're not wrong, Izzy Reborn. You're not wrong. Hi, Audrey. What'd you think about all that?
Oh yeah, so like when I was watching the Dark Road finale, and then like I was like braggy. I was like, I didn't really like say it, but I was just thinking in my head like, it would be really dumb if this guy is Shigbar. I was like, nah. But then there's things that he says during the Dark Road finale that I'm like, that's very like not like, it sounds like someone is very out of place. Like for example,
Right.
when he says like when Ericus was doing something in the place with the mirror in the Snow White world,
Yeah.
and then Bragi like yells at him. He's like, "Dude!" Like he's like Ericus sneezes or something. Yeah, and then I was like, "That's
like,
a word."
"Dude!"
Like that's a word. Yeah. And then I was like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." And then I remember I was like, "Huh, it's kind of funny that like Bragi is the only one who's wearing like sneakers, and everyone else is wearing like kind of period appropriate, like armor and shit."
You know what? Now that you're
Bragi's
pointing
wearing
all this
sneakers.
out, I'm like, okay, nah.
I didn't
Wow.
notice that. Like he's wearing sneakers. Like
He's got a
Converses.
hoodie,
Like,
a
and he got a hoodie,
sneakers.
like come on. And then afterwards, I was Like, okay, that totally makes sense. Like, he's Shigbar. But, like, I didn't really think as far, like, he was going to be Luxu. But I guess, yeah, it makes sense. If he is Shigbar, he is Luxu, right? So then I was just like, okay, so there's a lot of, like hints, right? That Bragi has, like, kind of like a weird out of place fashion, a little bit weird out of place like speech patterns, so like, yeah, maybe he's someone that we know, and it's like, okay, yeah, no, he is Luxu, okay, got it. But the reveal was still very surprising to me because the whole time I was like in my head like, nah, it's just coincidence, and then it happened. I was like, oh man.
You know,
yeah, as soon as he said as if.
Yeah, no, I was screaming. As soon as he said as if, I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, but you know.
Oh, yeah.
Audrey, you bring up a really good point with like his clothes being out of period and him saying dude, because like when I was streaming Dark Road, as soon as he said dude, my whole chat was all like, yo, look at this man using future lingo. And I'm like, you know, It didn't hit me at first, but now it's hitting me like a brick. And then Andy Brew makes up a really good point in the chat in which I'm revisualizing every cutscene, like almost every cutscene aside from Baldr, which we're about to talk about. Aside from Baldr, Bragi is always in the back, like he's watching everybody, and I'm like, okay, nah, that's hilarious. But going off of Bragi into Baldr, let's talk about Baldr for a little bit, because Baldr was definitely infected with one of the true darknesses. But that true darkness that took over Baldr was not one of the 7 deadly, because we do know that the 7 deadly darknesses are within the Lost Masters. The amount of damage that this man was able to do with a true darkness that isn't one of the deadly 7, it makes you think like, yo, the deadly 7s could probably be a problem, like a major problem. Let's talk about the body count that was Dark Road. How'd y'all, like, I'm gonna throw the ball over to Audrey first. How'd y'all feel about the carnage? Because I mean, like, I don't ever want to hear anyone say that no one dies in Kingdom Hearts ever again, because that shit was like left and right, and Baldr was such a freak. This man was counting it down every time he killed someone. So Audrey, the floor is yours. How'd you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm still kind of speechless. Like, I'm still processing it. It's been a week. Yeah, like, I think that it's good to have a pivot, to have this kind of like slightly darker pivot that I assume is going to continue into Kingdom Hearts 4, and perhaps Missing Link as well. I mean, the series is, Disney, but it's also Square Enix too, right? And Disney is not, like all fun and games. I mean, even though Mickey and Donald and Goofy and, the cast is there, it doesn't mean that they can't talk about like really serious and dark concepts, right? So I think it's really good that they kind of introduced that. It's heartbreaking, but it's good for the series as a whole, I think, so that it takes on a more mature tone. And I mean, everyone who has played Kingdom Hearts from the beginning, like, we are also older, right? And everyone has different experiences, life experiences. So I think that they're trying to maybe shift the tone to a bit of an older, more mature audience, which is great. I think it's great. It's kind of interesting because, like, in Tokyo or in Japan right now, like Tokyo Disney Resort is also experiencing like an issue where they cannot target to young people anymore because there are not that many young, Japanese kids, just because of the shrinking population. So because of that, they're also changing their marketing concepts to market towards people who are older, more mature audiences. They're, having more things that people like kids wouldn't care about, but then adults would. So I think that in that same note, that's kind of where Kingdom Hearts is going as a series, and I think that's really good.
A good thing,
yeah. But in terms of like the story, plot wise, like, I thought it was very, very sad. Especially the part where Baldr like is in a like solitary confinement and just gets like more and more like crazier and crazier, and then the shadow behind him becomes darker and darker. Like, that was really messed up. Like, I was watching that, I was like, oh no, oh god, like that is not okay.
Man.
Yeah.
But with that whole sense, it was just like very visceral to see how Baldr just went from 1 to 11, like I wouldn't say so quickly, but like very like quickly in our eyes. But something I want to clarify in the chat that I'm seeing a lot of confusion about, like when it comes to the whole take of Baldr possibly having a true darkness or whatnot. So like here's the breakdown for y'all. So it's confirmed that there are 13 progenitor original willful darknesses, right? They're called true darknesses. Of the 13, 7 are the 7 deadly are trapped within the Lost Masters. So that's 7 are accounted for. According to legend, 4 of the where you have 7 accounted for. 4 was trapped within the realm between realms, as we saw in the tube, at the very end of Union Cross that leads into Game Central Station. So that's 4 more accounted for. 7 plus 4, that's 11. There's 2 unaccounted for in which they assumed were destroyed when the world collapsed, right? That is going off their assumption that they were destroyed. Us as players know differently thanks to Union Cross and Dark Road. The 2 that aren't accounted for is Vanitas, in which we saw that True Darkness attach itself to Ventus, and then that True Darkness eventually went on to become Vanitas as Xehanort, and then as all of Kingdom Hearts implies. So that's 1 more accounted for that was thought to be destroyed. The other that was thought to be destroyed was the True Darkness that posed as Maleficent in front of Baldr, killing Hodor, because like at the very end, because like a lot of people were getting confused, like, oh, Baldr's like, oh, this darkness came from me because I was like, oh, super sad because I was like in solitary confinement because, my friends wouldn't save my sister and she died before me when she was killed by the giant dragon or whatever. As it turns out towards the end, Baldr, the true darkness in Baldr, is like, nah, that was me. He's like, oh, you did all this because what happened to sister? And then the darkness is like, nah, that was me. And it turns out that true darkness killed Hodor, Baldr's sister, posing as Maleficent in Baldr's mind, then possessed Baldr, killed the other 3 people that came to help, and they thought they got killed by Maleficent. In truth, they were killed by Baldr in the True Darkness. And then, Baldr going out murking everyone else, including that of Armad and Armad and Erd in the Realm of Darkness, and then goes on to kill Vidar, Vali, and Veor in Scalad Kyla. So it shows that Baldr was definitely in a dark place when he was in solitary confinement, in which he made his heart have cracks open big enough that's like, oh yeah, accept the darkness, we are one and the same, your thoughts are getting darker. But the whole time Baldr had the darkness at that point, because as soon as that darkness killed Hodor, the darkness took over Baldr in his state of madness, sadness, and then killed his other 3 classmates, and then stuck with him while he was in solitary confinement. And then it grew and grew and grew into the monster we saw at the end of Dark Road. So that's like the bit of clarification that I want you guys to understand. But in that sense, when it comes to the body count, Sarah, the floor is yours. What do you think about Death and Despair?
Okay, so I actually not to sound like, how do I say this? I kind of like it because
no, I loved it too. So don't be afraid.
Okay, it really surprised me to see just how much death there would be in Dark Road. I know it's called Dark Road, but it's supposed to be dark. But I think that I think like Audrey said, like the tone change is pretty cool. Feel like it's nice to have something a little bit different. I mean, Kingdom Hearts has had a lot of dark moments. Like, we can't take that away from it. But I would say that this is probably the darkest that Kingdom Hearts has been to date. Easily. Yeah. The storytelling, obviously, or maybe not the storytelling, but the way it's told with like the little chibi style characters is not as impactful as it would be if it was just like a main title. So I do hope to see more themes like this in the future, just because I personally really enjoy when things get dark and like suspenseful and emotional. I don't want my favorite characters to die, but I
what do you mean it's time? Like
no, absolutely not. But I don't know. I guess if it was done, in a way
Strelasia's
that
gonna
was
get
really
bodied in Kingdom Hearts
beautiful.
4. I just think so.
Okay, but that would be so wrong. Like just making us watch her die twice. I don't know. That's so wrong.
What do you mean? Namar's like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. You saw it once before. What's the big deal? Like,
Oh, it's horrible. But at the same time, yeah, I think it would make the series kind of just. It's what I've wanted since the secret ending that was teasing Birth by Sleep. When I thought that was gonna be like rated T and all of that, that's kind of I wanted it to just get more edgy. So I don't know.
Ow, the edge. Panglo asks, why do you want death, HMK? Because their anguish sustains me. Like, what? Like, bro, that was like, in my opinion, like, I was going through it. Like, because I thought Dark World was going to have a lot of death and despair. Obviously, considering from the first episode where you see Xehanort, you know, put down the flowers to everyone. But from what we got towards the end of the game, that shit was like going like 11,000 miles an hour. I was just like, okay, well, I need a rest. No, stop. Another one? Oh, they're dead too. No, and then and then when Veyor got bodied, that all right, that one, in my opinion, was the one that broke the camel's back for me. I'm like, okay, come on. She's small. She's like the one you want to protect. And she got it the worst out of all of them. And I'm like, ain't no way. Because that was the one a lot of people were betting on surviving, right? But it turns out they all died, right? And then, Vidar, Vala, and Vali, they got smoked all at once. And then it's funny because before we found out that Bragi actually lived through that, I was actually on the verge of tears when thinking about the idea that Bragi died with no one around him. Like, he died in solitude. And the way that, like, it showed how Baldr killed him, I'm like, that shit was dirty. And, like, he died by himself. I mean, at least Armad and Erd were together and they died together, right? But I'm like, oh, Bragi, I was going through it. But then, like, oh, Bragi's okay. Okay, cool. Oh, he's Luxu too. Awesome, right? So, not that knowing Bragi was alive the whole time, Veyor was definitely the one that, like, broke the camel's back. It's like, that one was hella wild. But then talking about death and, like, more mature, edgy themes, let's talk about the one thing that I feel like truly started Xehanort on the path to the Dark Road. Because leading up to this, Baldr kept on saying there are two types of people. There are people like my sister, like Ericus, and there's people like me. And then he looked at Xehanort and was like, Xehanort, you're just like me. And those words weigh extremely heavy when we find out what happens in the rest of Kingdom Hearts. But then at that moment, when Ericus and Odin were telling Xehanort, like, Baldr's down, purge the darkness from him, Xehanort's like, nah. And just straight up executed a downed man. And that, like, hearing like, even though Baldr, like, was smoking everyone, hearing, like, him scream no after Xehanort straight up executed him while he was down, I'm like, dude, this is like, this is, bro, Kingdom Hearts, people saying Kingdom Hearts kitty shit, nah, that's like Xehanort first blood right there. So, throwing it over to Audrey, how'd you feel about that one scene?
I don't know if that scene would be like the catalyst to how he spirals into darkness. I just think it's a buildup of everything that happened up until that point.
Right.
But for me, it wasn't like too shocking. I was just like, yeah, he should kill him. Like, because he killed everyone else.
Right.
And I was like, I mean, he's a true darkness, right? So he's obviously like, if it's, unhinged, like, darkness that needs to go. Like, so I was just like, yeah, I mean, Xehanort should definitely put an end to that. So I didn't really see him as like, in that moment, I didn't see Xehanort as like, oh, he's like evil. He's gonna, or not evil, but he's like, he's dark and he's going to kill, the bad guy or whatever. I was just thinking like, oh, he's the hero of the story and he's gonna kill the bad guy.
Right.
Like, it was kind of like that. Yeah, for me.
I definitely get that. And like, I would understand completely if it wasn't for his master giving him a direct order that he did not obey. That's the contrast for me. That's like the breaking point. Like if Odin didn't say all that, like if Odin just trapped him and then Xehanort just like executed him after that, I'm like, oh damn, okay, that's what you're doing. Yo, good on you, Xehanort. But Odin was all like, yo, purge him. And then after Xehanort executed him, if you look at Odin and Ericus, they were both like, yo, did he just do that? Like, hey yo, like their jaws were dropped. They're like, that was not the plan, right? So that's why I feel like, that a bit visceral for me.
Define the order, right?
Yeah.
Define the orders is a part that was like, oh, okay, this is spicy.
Yep. So throwing the ball over to Sarah, what did you think about that one scene? Just like Zane, just like merciless. How'd you feel?
I think that for me, when Baldr was saying like you're like me, I kind of almost view it as like the two types of people being people who are more almost like light and dark, kind of like, going back to that theme. Like I feel like he meant Xehanort is more vulnerable to darkness. I don't know. At least that's how I interpret it. Like I would also consider maybe even Riku to be one of those people. The potential to be consumed by darkness, but I don't know, that's just how I see it at least. But I don't know, I was a little confused at that part because I couldn't tell if Xehanort was doing what he was supposed to, or if, like you said, he was actually kind of going against the orders. So for me, when I was watching that scene, I was just a little confused because I saw how surprised everyone was, and I was like, I thought that was what we were supposed to do.
I thought this was the plan. What's going on?
Yeah, I thought he was like hesitating.
Nah, like the way I got it was that like because Ericus was always like, even Ericus was like, oh, I don't want to give up Baldur's life. I just want to destroy darkness. I will destroy the darkness. I'll purge the darkness. So Ericus was on that side, and Odin was like, okay, he's down. Down's the chance to just get rid of the darkness if you can. Yeah. And then Xehanort's like, you know what? I'll do you one better. And then like just eliminates it entirely. That's how I inferred it. I want to know what you guys in the chat, how'd you guys infer it? Because that's what I got. I'm like, yo, Xehanort's just like, no, this man killed all my friends and he's got to pay. But that's Baldr in there is like, that sucks. Like, and then bye.
Yeah, I think I was just confused if there's a way to just kill the darkness, or if you'd have to kill Baldr to kill the darkness. But I guess, from everything we've gathered from the ending of Union Cross and from the entirety of Dark Road, it's heavily implied like, oh, in order to eliminate a true darkness, you must destroy the vessel that it's inhabiting. Unless you want to use Kingdom Hearts. Like, that's why Odin was all like, hey, there might be another way to destroy the darkness without destroying the person. We have to use Kingdom Hearts, right? But then, like, Odin said that, and the Master of Masters said that. So I'm like, I'm going to go along with what these two say, where it's like, oh, if we trap the darkness within a vessel, then we give it form. If we destroy that form, then we destroy the darkness within it, because unless it has a form, we can't really destroy it. So Odin's all like, necessary sacrifice, and then Xehanort's like, all right, check it. And then, took him out. So if we're gonna go with the idea that I feel that Baldr definitely did have one of the unaccounted true darknesses, which is that one and Vanitas, then we are now at 12, right? So we have 12 left, and the 7 deadly are still within the Lost Masters. 4 are trapped in Wreck-It Ralph Interworld, and then Vanitas is the one that's still within Ventus, as I gather it. But in that sense, to go off a little bit of tangent before we go on to our final subject, the true darknesses within, I would say, Game Central Station's pathway, those aren't destroyed; they're just trapped. And I feel this is something that Skyward Wing would really enjoy about the possibility of, like, in Kingdom Hearts 4, or at least in the Lost Master arc, that they're going to explore the concept of, those true darknesses escaping. And then that could possibly mean we could go to Wreck-It Ralph in a 3D game. So how do y'all feel about that? I'm going to throw it over to Sarah first. I would love that. I love Wreck-It Ralph, and, as much as I love the mobile games, it's not the same when you have a world that's 2D like that. And I just think I was a little sad when Wreck-It Ralph came out for Union Cross, and I thought that they had said that it wouldn't come out for anything else, but maybe I could be wrong.
Right.
And maybe they'll change their mind if that was the case. But I think it would be really cool to have 3D Wreck-It Ralph because I think it would be absolutely perfect for any Kingdom Hearts game, and especially because they have 2 different ones already. Yeah, I'd really like that.
I would love to see that explored once again. And then, like, from what we saw in New Year Cross, that followed the movie nearly to a T. So, I mean, like, maybe, like, I don't know about them tackling Ralph Breaks the Internet. That sounds like a nightmare and a half.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll give it Nomura will give it an original story, which I feel like is fine because I love Nomura's take on original stories when it comes to Disney Worlds. But Audrey, what do you think about the whole possibility of us possibly tackling, Game Central Station in a 3D game?
Yeah, I think it's very possible. Like Wreck-It Ralph is exactly the aesthetic that Kingdom Hearts 3 would be built on. That Kingdom Hearts 3 already built on, but Kingdom Hearts 4 will continue. And I think, it probably, if it's not, related to Vanellope and Wreck-It Ralph 1's story arc, and if it's not related to the Ralph Breaks the Internet, then it's probably going to be, another original story, which is fine. Like something similar that they did with Toy Story, right? So that will be really interesting to see. The only thing that I'm kind of curious about, though, is Kingdom Hearts 4. It's supposed to be built on the Unreal Engine 5. And Sora, it looks obviously different in Quadratum, right? So what I'm kind of curious is, does that mean that if we are to go back into a Disney world, that Sora will look more like his Kingdom Hearts 3 design, or he's going to look like Kingdom Hearts 4's design and just be like that in all of the worlds he goes to in Kingdom Hearts 4 and onwards? That wasn't really clear to me because obviously when we see Donald and Goofy, they look the same,
right?
So I was wondering, like, are they gonna change the artistic styles based on what world he goes to, or is it gonna be this consistent style, just that will be the new Sora?
So
that's what I'm not really sure.
I've read from an interview, like it was very small towards the end where Nomura clarified that, where like people were really confused, like, why does Sora look like this in Quadratum? Why does it look super realistic? I mean, like, if you played the Kingdom Hearts games, like, you would know he's in unreality right now. Verum-Rex, all that good jazz. But at the very end, he said, at the end of the trailer, we saw Donald and Goofy look the way they do, very similar to that of Kingdom Hearts 3. Yeah. He clarified, like, if Sora were to come back to our world, or not our world, but if Sora were to come back to the world where Donald and Goofy, where the world he's from, he would once again regain his familiar appearance in Kingdom Hearts up until now. So that's what Nomura said. Like, if he were to ever come back, he would get that appearance back. The reason why he looks super realistic like this is, obviously Quadratum. We all know that. But that gives the whole idea of like, is he gonna come back or not? Right? Because he's using that big ass if, So right. I feel like if he were to come back, and I feel like there's gonna be some sort of caveat of Sora going to Disney Worlds while in Quadratum, where he's able to go to Disney Worlds, but he will still be separated from, everyone that also decides to visit that world. Like, me and Sky had this really cool conversation, and Sarah was there for that stream, where possibly the whole idea of death, we could explore Disney Worlds that have that concept of death, in which, like, that's their, I would say, reach around in order to have Sora be with Donald and Goofy again. But it will have its limits. Like, let's say, for example, let's use the world Coco, where Sora, Donald, and Goofy could reunite in a world Coco, but they can only reunite while they're all still in the underworld, or the the land of the remembered, or whatever. They can only be there, and then Donald and Goofy can get out, but Sora can't get out of that. So he can only stay like in half the world, right? Another example would be what was another example that like was brought up, where the whole idea of like death and whatnot.
The world, maybe.
Yeah,
Hades.
Hades is like a very easy one. Yeah, the Hercules, where Sora can only be in the underworld, but he can't get out of the underworld and go into like the Colosseum or Olympus or anything like that. Like, he's stuck in that divide. That's like the only way that he could possibly like reunite with Donald and Goofy, and that they're gonna have to figure out a way around that in order to bring him back out. So that's like that's a concept we were playing around with for the longest or whatever. And I feel that that's like, that'll be a cool way to circumvent that and have Sora like, okay, this is how Sora looks in Quadratum, this is how he looks in Disney Worlds again, and blah 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 blah. But we'll have to wait and see because, there's a lot we don't know about Kingdom Hearts 4, but it's all very, very exciting. But I feel that we have a good taste of what we could expect when it comes to the writing and the approach of Kingdom Hearts 4 going off of Dark Road. Because Nomura is like bringing in writers and flavors from these games into, the Lost Master arc. He's already bringing in. I'm pretty sure he brought in. He brought in a writer that contributed to the World Ends With You.
2 writers, I think. Yeah. 2. One is a female writer. I don't remember what exactly she worked on prior to this, but she definitely is like one of the head writers. So I think that right now there are 3 writers for Kingdom Hearts 4 and onwards, I believe.
Right. So like in that sense, I feel that there's going to be a lot of like wilder concepts in which we'll turn everything we know about Kingdom Hearts on its head, which is good because we kind of already got that with the ending of both Union Cross and Dark Road, which makes me super excited for Missing Link. So ending off this conversation, we're going to get on our final topic when it comes to like Dark Road's finale and all that good jazz. And that is how we gather everything we've seen from Dark Road, everything we can come to expect from Missing Link when it comes to, the Lost Master arc, the Kingdom Hearts Key saga, and all that good jazz. What from Dark Road and what from what we see from Missing Link gets you really excited for Kingdom Hearts 4? So I'm going to go ahead and start, and then I'm going to throw the ball over to Audrey, and then we're going to end off with Sarah. So for me, like obviously the whole concept of true darknesses, the concept of like, death, despair, and, more visceral and, as Sarah put it, more edgy themes in Kingdom Hearts, more darker themes. We definitely gather that from the trailer of Kingdom Hearts 4, and that we are basically spilling in a lot of lore concepts from Dark Road into Missing Link, which gets us more excited for Missing Link or preps up Missing Link. And then Nomura said like, if you want to get more information and more understanding of where Kingdom Hearts 4 may be headed, play Missing Link, which is supposedly due out for this year. That gets me really excited to see that whole, I would say, darker, more mature concept of Kingdom Hearts, because we've basically been growing up with the series and them dipping their feet into those visceral aspects. Like, don't get me wrong, Kingdom Hearts has always been dark to a degree, but now that degree is being dialed up to 11. That's what gets me most hyped for Kingdom Hearts 4, and especially when it comes to the whole concept of darkness finally being fleshed out in terms of how darkness comes to be, how emotion can be viewed as false light, in which it could truly be darkness if you like how you infer a positive emotion. Oh, is everything you feel towards someone you love, is that truly light or is it darkness? All of those questions and all those existential ideas, I feel, is really good for cultivating what we can expect for Kingdom Hearts 4. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it over to Audrey. What gets you most excited for Kingdom Hearts 4 going off from what we saw in Dark Road, what we know from Missing Link, and going into Lost Master arc? Go.
Yeah, I think what you said, HMK, where it's more mature themes. That's going to be really interesting because it's a very big change that up until now we haven't really seen such carnage. It's clearly it's probably quite obvious that they're trying to go into a more mature audience now, which is great. And I think that the concepts of like dark and light not being, black and white, it's actually gray. There's a lot of gray area. That's quite, a very human way of viewing things and a very realistic way of viewing things. So I think those kind of like concepts of, incorporating real life, like dilemmas and philosophies and perspectives is really good for a change in the tone for the series, which I'm really excited. And another thing that I'm very interested in looking or seeing how it unfolds is the concept of the bloodlines, because that was something that's just kind of dropped on us randomly through an interview that Nomura, actually it wasn't even in an interview, it was in the Missing Link's Japanese trailer, and I noticed, I was like, wait, that's not what they said in the official translation. Yep. Yeah, and I was like, they're talking about bloodlines here, and then it was made clear in a Famitsu interview where Nomura was talking about the bloodlines, and I was like, okay, well, that's interesting and that's new, and it was never talked about before. So that's going to be, I think pretty prevalent moving forward. And I'm very curious to see who's Xehanort's bloodline and who's not. And if the people who are not Xehanort's bloodline, if they are not part of his bloodline, then like you said, HMK, are they the ones who are supposed to have the child of destiny? So those are all really interesting concepts that I want to see fleshed out moving forward. And yeah, it makes the series really fresh and exciting.
Exactly. And I'm all for that whole idea of like, bringing more freshness to Kingdom Hearts. And, a lot of people are like, oh, but Kingdom Hearts 4 is looking a lot like Vermex versus 13, which, the original project was being headed by Nomura. And that was his own dark take on Final Fantasy and using concepts of what he's been doing with Kingdom Hearts. And a lot of people from the Kingdom Hearts team was working on that. So I mean, like, come on, it looks like it's finally time and whatnot. So I'm glad that those type of concepts and those type of like, more mature, edgy themes are being explored in Kingdom Hearts. I feel like it's a really nice breath of fresh air. But throwing the ball over to Sarah, what makes you most excited when it comes to everything we saw from Dark Road, everything we know about Missing Link, and what we see of Kingdom Hearts 4 so far? What makes you most excited in this next arc, the Lost Master arc of Kingdom Hearts? Go.
I'm very excited to, like we talked about earlier, see more serious themes introduced. I think that, like, overall, the Kingdom Hearts fan base has kind of grown up with Kingdom Hearts and are, older than it's not like a lot of children playing Kingdom Hearts at this point. I mean, obviously,
Exactly.
some do, but it is mostly like young adults who grew up with it. So I think that it's kind of time for there to be some more dark themes. So I'm very excited about that and seeing how that's probably going to happen. I mean, I feel like even like the end of Kingdom Hearts 3 sort of foreshadows that. Like,
definitely.
Like, who would have thought that Sora would disappear? So I just feel like that was probably such a good indicator that, like, hey, it's gonna get a lot darker. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see more realistic worlds and see how those like kind of work. Because that's always been something I was concerned about, but I think now with like Unreal Engine 5 and how good it can look, I think it'll be really cool. So I'm really excited. Like, I know it's like all but confirmed that Star Wars is gonna be in Kingdom Hearts 4.
Oh yeah, the Force.
So I mean, like, that's gonna be really interesting. And then like going back to like with Dark Road, I think there were like a lot of kind of like not necessarily a lot of plot twists, but a lot of like surprising moments. I would really love to see more of that in Kingdom Hearts 4. Just like, whoa. Like I want to see, like we were talking about bloodlines, like just seeing maybe some characters being related to characters from Dark Road or Union Cross, and just being really, really shocked.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, like Kairi.
No way. Kairi's related to, I don't know, her mod or something. I don't know.
Oh man.
Exactly. I just think that'd be really cool, especially because they've put a lot of emphasis on Kairi recently, like with Melody of Memory. So I think that would also be really, really, really cool. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, that was a good gathering of thoughts and whatnot. And in terms of like the direction of Kingdom Hearts, like a lot of people are saying in the chat, I am honestly loving this direction of where it's going and whatnot. I feel like once again, like when I was bouncing off of Audrey, it's very fresh, it's very good, it's very needed in order for the series not to get stale, in order for it to introduce new concepts, more concepts, and, taking it in bold new directions. And like Riku said in Kingdom Hearts 1, you must not be afraid of the darkness, right? You just have to take that step and just go. And I feel that will take us a long way when it comes to Kingdom Hearts 4 and the Lost Master arc. But ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all so much for coming out to the stream this episode of The Fifth Dimension. And I'd like to thank my most esteemed guests, SarahKey and Audrey of AitaiKimochi, being here. And before I toss y'all to the wind, let's go off and give them a send off. We're going to start with Audrey. Thank you so much for being here. Let them know where they can find you and what you're all about.
Sure. Thanks, guys, for tuning in today. And thank you, HMK, for inviting me. I had a blast talking about Kingdom Hearts Dark Road and the future of the series. I am, Audrey, I translate news and I report about news a lot for Square Enix IPs. You can check me out on Twitter AitaiKimochi, and I also am the CEO of the company Aitai Japan. We own the e-commerce website AitaiKuji. You can buy a bunch of anime and video game merchandise that is limited to Japan usually only, and we ship around the world. You can check out our link in the command that HMK has. I think it's like !KH merch. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And yeah, it was super fun, and it was great talking to you and Sarah as well.
Thank you so much for being here. Obviously, you're such a pal. And guys, please be sure to check out our shop. Everything you need when it comes to Kingdom Hearts Japan exclusive merch is great. I bring stuff home from Japan last time I went, and she sent me a bunch of awesome stuff. You will not regret it. And of course, last but not least, Sarah, thank you so much for being here. Let them know where they can find you and what you're all about.
Thanks for having me again. I really appreciate it. It was really nice to finally get to talk to Audrey and to talk to you again, of course.
Same.
Yeah. I'm a key keeper and a newly, and which is really cool. And you guys can find me at twitch.tv/SarahKey and also youtube.com/SarahKey. I make a lot of variety content, but anytime there's Kingdom Hearts stuff, I'm all over it because it's my favorite series ever. And yeah, thanks again for having me.
Of course, it's always a pleasure having both of you on. Now, before I toss you all to the wind, The Fifth Dimension is not only a podcast I run, it's also a Twitch stream that I'm in charge of, in which we are trying to cultivate the next generation of Twitch streamers. So before I toss out to the wind, let's go ahead and raid Momo Pokemon, who is currently streaming Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which I am currently waiting for Sarah to finish so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Please, let me know when you're done. I'm watching your streams. I'm watching you. So as soon as you're done, I'm gonna try and book you for a Fifth Dimension because we need to talk about what goes down, but I'm not saying anything.
Sounds
good. Once again, guys, thank y'all so much for coming on out to the Fifth Dimension. Until the next episode, this has been Audrey of AitaiKimochi, SarahKey, and HMK. Until the next one, remember, dive deep, be brave, and enter the Fifth Dimension. We'll check you guys later.
Thank you.
Thanks.